Welcome to this week's bonus video. This bonus video is going to be a little bit different than usual. I'm actually going to highlight one of the perks of being a Patreon supporter for me. So if you're a Patreon supporter, if you are at the $5 a month or more option, then you get access to the Excel deck builder. The Excel deck builder is one of the coolest things I think that I offer as a content creator, and it's an enormously useful tool for me as a person creating justinbasil.com. And I think people that are using it already would probably vouch for just how incredibly awesome and powerful this thing is. One of the biggest perks that you can have, honestly, in a deck builder is being able to easily build with unreleased cards. So here in the Excel-based deck builder, you are able to put in cards that haven't released yet. I am constantly updating the deck builder with cards shortly after they're revealed, it's usually within a day or two. So the cards that were just revealed as of Sunday from Stellar Miracle, which as a recording has not released in Japan yet, has just now been revealed in Japan. All 8 of the cards that were revealed on that reveal are all already in this deck builder available to use. So for example, if we wanted to come in here and I wanted to add Terapagos to the deck builder, I could for Terapagos. And here we go. Terapagos is already now in the deck builder, and we're able to make use of the deck builder. One of the cool things also about this deck builder, and you'll kind of notice as I'm going over it, is that it validates for a lot of different formats, including some fan formats, quite a few of them, in fact, including the Eternal format and Gym Leader Challenge. So both of those fan formats are checked in this deck builder. So if you're building decks for either of those formats or for a whole host of other formats, including Expanded, 345, Theme Pool, Aceless, Dream format, etc., you're going to be able to validate your decks here and make sure that they are legal for those formats. So one of the things you'll notice here with it having added Terapagos is you'll see in this most recently added card graphic, it's pulled that image in and is showing you what card it sees that you most recently added. Now it's a little dumb. It just kind of shows you what the bottommost card is that you have in the deck list, but it's very helpful as you're adding cards to see what it is that the deck builder is seeing. So if you add 4 copies of Professor's Research, for example, then it'll tell you, okay, I see that you added 4 copies of Professor's Research. There they are. Now, sometimes when you're adding cards, it's not necessarily going to understand what it is you're putting in. Like maybe you forgot to put the apostrophe S in boss's order. It will let you know, hey, I don't quite understand what you're saying, and it will leave it in yellow for you so that you can go back to it and fix it and figure out what it is you need to do to make it so that the deck builder can understand it. So if we go back here and we change it so that it's boss's orders, then we're aware, oh, hey, look, it's actually something that's supposed to be there. Now, what's cool too is if we want to kind of get a visual view of what's going on as we're adding these images, we can jump back and forth between this deck builder tab here. So you see the deck builder tab at the bottom and image gen. So this is an image gen tab here. So we can click on image gen and you'll see as we're adding cards to it, it's creating our visual deck list for us. So we can see the cards in that deck list. So here we have the 4 Terapagos, we have the 4 Research, we have the 2 Boss's Orders. And it's also letting us know, hey, by the way, this is not a legal deck list at the moment. You only have 10 cards out of the 60. Going back into the main deck builder itself, it also helps us understand if we've accidentally added a card that is not legal in the format we're validating. So right now, because we're building for the upcoming standard format, if we were to add a card that were not legal, like the Marshadow, for example, from Shining Legends, it's going to tell us, hey, this card isn't legal by highlighting it in an orangish red color. So that lets us know, hey, card's not good, needs to be taken off the list, right? It's also going to show us on the right over here in the validation report, a list of cards that aren't legal in the format that we're building for, which is fine, right? So in this case, we have Marshadow. So it'll highlight it over here and give us a list over here of all the cards that are not legal in the format we're trying to validate for. Another cool thing too is this doesn't just apply to the deck builder here. If you are in the image gen or the visual view of the deck list, you'll actually see here, this Marshadow, the color of the box below it for the number of it contains in the deck is also marked red. So as you can see, even in your visual list, hey, by the way, you may have missed it in the deck builder, but this card is not legal, so that it highlights it for you and lets you know, hey, you really need to fix that. One of the things I want to highlight too, when you're inputting cards into the deck builder, you'll see here how I've just put Noctowl. The deck builder doesn't quite understand which Noctowl you're trying to put, but it is suggesting the most recent version of Noctowl, just in case that's the one you want. In this case, it is actually the one we want. So we can go back here and we can change this to Noctowl SCR. That's the abbreviation for Stellar Crown, which is our upcoming set here internationally for TPCI regions. So that'll have our Terapagos in it, for example. So here we've now seen that we have the SCR version of Noctowl, and now it recognizes the card, says, okay, that's good. I understand you now. That's fine. Sometimes if there's more than one in a set, you may have to specify the specific number, but you'll see here that it most of the time it tries to look the cards up and just understands them. The best way I can describe this is for special energy, for energy, and for trainer cards, you can pretty much just put the card's name. But for Pokemon, you need to be a little bit more specific. And we'll go over how to make sure you're putting in the right one later, or kind of an easier way to make sure you can find the information you need to put the card in. All right, at this point, I've added a bunch of cards to this deck list. This isn't a real deck list. Don't try to copy this. This is definitely not good, but this is 60 cards. I just want to highlight something really cool here. So right now we've validated for the standard format. We have everything says it's not illegal. It's all good. In fact, if you look over here in format validation, you'll see it says legal. That's cool. But let's say we're trying to get ourselves ready for next standard format rotation. We can actually come up here to where it says validate format and pick this drop down box and change it to post rotation standard. So we can change the particular format that we have here. And you'll notice too, there are a bunch of different formats that are in this list that you can choose. But for now, we're just going to pick post rotation standard. If we click post rotation standard, you'll notice the top two cards here are ones that won't be legal after rotation. If we go back to the image gen here on the image gen, it's going to be Bidoof and Bibarel. Unfortunately, our little chomper guys are going to be leaving the format, but we can see that that is the case. And if we would want to change this to a different format, like let's say perhaps the Dream format, we'll see it's all legal. But if we were to change it to something like 345, for example, it's going to highlight a few different cards that are not legal in that format. So very interesting to see which cards are not legal in which formats. If you're building for a few different formats, or if you're just kind of building in general, this is a great way to do that. Kind of already showed this a little bit earlier, but you'll also notice here on the format validation, it's going to show you all the different formats that the deck builder currently validates for, or rather, it shows you the ones that it validates by default. So by default, you're going to see standard format, the post-rotation standard format, expanded, eternal, 345, GLC, theme pool, aceless, dream, and then as of recording, Popper is not yet implemented. That is coming down the road. And then you'll see here, Sun and Moon Lost Thunder is also being checked. But something I wanted to point out is it actually validates for a lot more formats than just what's right here. This last format you can select yourself. This is the retro or alternate slot. So if you go down here on settings, the settings tab, and you'll see additional format validation, there is a selected format here. Right now we have Sun and Moon Lost Thunder format selected, but we could change and pick from any number of several dozen formats here. So let's say we wanted pardon me. Let's say we wanted to validate for the 2012 Worlds format. We could pick that. And then when we go here, if we change the drop down, or if we select the drop down, we now see 2012 Worlds as our option. And over here under format validation, 2012 Worlds also appears. So if we select 2012 Worlds, you'll notice most of these cards are not legal in the 2012 Worlds format. So it marks all of them as being illegal in that format. All right, here I have imported a deck list from 2012 Worlds format. So you can kind of see the deck list here off the side. So all the cards here. If you wanted to see the image gen format for it, you could see image gen. So this is all the cards that are in that deck list. Now, something I want to highlight for these retro formats, it is extremely aggressive when it validates. It will only allow cards from the sets that were legal in the standard format at that time. Even cards that would have been legal in decks, so cards from prior sets, it's not going to allow as legal. It's trying to keep all of them era appropriate when you're validating for those formats. So something I want to highlight here, you see this rare candy. If we were to change this rare candy to make it so that it's just the most recent print of rare candy, which is Paldean Fates, you'll see it pops up, but it shows as illegal because, of course, Paldean Fates rare candy and Paldean Fates in general was not legal in the 2012 format. So it's going to mark that as being an illegal card, even though 2012 did have rare candy in the format. So if we wanted to fix that, we would just change that to a print of the rare candy that was legal at the time. So in this case, we'll go with DEX, so Dark Explorers. We go here, magically it's legal because yes, that print was legal at the time. So we're good to go with our deck list. Now, I know that you're not always going to want to start building your deck list from scratch. Maybe you're going to take a deck list from Limitless that you really like and kind of tweak it to fit what you want for your deck list. So the best way to do that, of course, is to pull up Limitless itself. You're going to find a deck list that you like on Limitless, like this one here from the Eternal Format series by Trini Ray. So we'll find this deck list and we're going to find the copy to clipboard option here. We'll hit copy to clipboard, and then we're going to return to our Excel deck editor and deck builder. And instead of going straight into the deck builder page, we're actually going to go to the sanitizer page. So if we go to the sanitizer page here, you'll see this kind of very barren, very sad landscape of cells here. But what we're going to do is we're going to click paste from clipboard, and it's going to immediately import that list from Limitless into here. And it's going to show you what it sees over here. And if there's anything wrong with the deck list for whatever reason, it's going to highlight it in red. It sees everything, it recognizes everything. So what we can do next, if we want to start tweaking this deck list, we can click export to builder. Boom. Now at this time right now, we are actually validating for the 2012 Worlds format, and that's not the format that this deck list happens to be part of. So we want the Eternal format here. So we'll click Eternal format, and now it's recognizing that this is an Eternal format deck list. You'll also see over here off to the right that Eternal format says this deck is in fact legal in the Eternal format. In fact, it's the only format here that it's legal in, but it is legal. So we see our wonderful deck list, and we can start making tweaks to this as we go. Now, as we're making changes in our deck list, let's say, for example, we don't think 4 Pokemon communication in this deck list is worth it, and we don't think 4 Versus Seeker is worth it, but we would really like a 4th copy of Surprise Time Machine and an 8th Basic Energy. So we can make those changes. We can tweak them real quick. We can resort it as we please, and we can look at our pretty deck list as it is here. So you see all the cards that are in this deck list. At this point, let's say that we're happy with the changes we've made and we're ready to share this deck list with other people. So the next steps we could do, we can either take this out as an image list, or we can do this as a text list. So one thing we might want to do if we're doing an image list is give this a title. So if we go back over here on our deck builder, we can go to this spot here that says deck name, and we'll call this Gardevoir EX because that's what this deck is. So Gardevoir EX. So we've given it a name. Now, when we come over here to the image gen, you'll actually see that it has that name here on the image. And when we copy this image to save it off somewhere, wherever we need to save it off, whether that's pasting into Discord or whatever, we can either choose to copy this deck list image with that title or without the title. So here we have copy image gen, so that'll be just this bottom part here, and then copy with title will be the whole thing with the box up top. So if we want the whole thing, we can click copy with title, and then we can take it into our image creator of choice. In this case, I have GIMP. Something like Paint would work just fine. And when we hit paste, we see we have a beautiful image. We can save it off here, or a lot of places you can actually paste directly. Like I said earlier, Discord, you can just paste directly into Discord and it understands it just fine. Now, let's say we don't necessarily need or even want an image at this point, and we just want to have a text-based deck list that we can use and share with others. There's, of course, a way to do that too. We'll hit copy list to clipboard. And then when we want to paste it off somewhere like Facebook or Instagram or something, or even just Notepad, if we want to save it off somewhere, we can do that. And we just paste it there. So I just hit Control V on the keyboard here, and there is the text version of the deck list that we have. So here we have our deck list, which is pretty nifty. So just going to highlight a few miscellaneous things that are kind of a little bit extra. Sometimes when you're starting a deck list, it's nice to have a fresh start. So here we have a blank start, blank canvas, but sometimes it's nice to kind of just have a basic cluster of really commonly used cards just dumped into the editor so that we don't have to try to remember those specific cards. And if we don't want them, we can cut them out. So here on this page is the quick start engine option. There are a few engines here that are available to use. Generic, I think, is probably the most useful for most people. It's a set of very, very commonly used cards currently in the standard format. So we just click quick start and hit yes to allow it to clear anything we might have in the builder. It will automatically dump in this case, 23 of the most common cards in the format for us to just have ready to go so that we can get to building the rest of our deck list once we've already got this on the deck list editor. Another thing I'll highlight here, you'll see on this part here, there's both an error log and a warnings log. So it can kind of tell you some information that might be an issue with your deck list. So here, note that we are 37 cards short of 60. So we do not have a legal deck list simply because we don't have 60 cards in our deck. We also don't have any basic Pokemon at the moment. Right now, we just have trainer cards. So that's also something to be aware of. And then for warnings, it's telling us, hey, you don't have any stadium cards. That's pretty important in some formats where you really need to be able to bump a hostile stadium. Deck contains no energy. Most decks do require energy. Sometimes you get those 60 cards and you're like, yeah, I got everything I needed in there. It felt so good. And then you realize, oh, actually I don't, because I don't have the energy in the deck. I need to make room for like, 8 to 10 energy. This lets you know, hey, you don't have one, or you don't have any energy in there. And it also checks for A specs. Do you have an A spec in the deck? If you don't, then it's going to say, hey, you should probably add an A spec. Another thing it does, it's very useful for me, and probably useful for many of you. Let's say I'm going to add an Oddish in my deck list. So I have an Oddish here from Crown Zenith, and I'm adding a Blossom in my deck list. And here I didn't put the Crown Zenith, so I need to put Crown Zenith. Here we go, Crown Zenith Blossom. All right, so I have Crown Zenith there. It knows, hey, both these cards are in the deck list, but you'll notice here it actually checks, says the deck contains a stage 2 Pokemon, but no rare candy. Sometimes I will be building deck lists and I'm going really, really quickly, and I completely space putting rare candies in the deck list in a stage 2 deck. So this is gonna be one of those things that says, hey, by the way, something you should check. You don't have any rare candy in your deck. You should definitely look at that. Another feature I'd like to show off here is the option to select specific arts for specific cards in your deck. Now, obviously you can't do this for all of them, but for several of the very important cards in the standard format, under the settings tab, you can actually change which art you have selected while you're deck building. So for example, here we have the default research, the default boss, the default ultra ball, the default nest ball. But if we wanted to change those, we could. So if we come here for Professor's Research, let's say, for example, we really like the Professor's Research from Celebration, we would change that one to this one. So now that's the art that it's going to pick. And if we go to Image Gen, you'll actually see that we don't have that card in our deck. But a card we do have in our deck is Boss's Orders. If we come over here and change Boss's Orders, right now we have that Gethys art, but if we change it, let's say we want Giovanni here. So Giovanni now shows up here. When we have our Image Gen, Giovanni's Boss's Orders shows up here. And we can do the same with our basic Grass Energy, because that's another card that we do have on that deck list. So if we want to, for example, use the original base set energy and we change it to the base set energy, when we go to this here, it now shows the base set energy here. And if we didn't like the base set energy, maybe we think it's too little too cut off or just not clear enough, we could change it to the silhouette energy from Heart Gold and Soul Silver and come over here to Image Gen and see the Heart Gold Soul Silver silhouette energy. So little customizable things that you can do, like Nest Ball, Ultra Ball also are changeable. Just a few of the really, really, really commonly used and very important cards that have multiple arts. You can kind of tweak with them and just kind of make it a little bit happier. The next feature I kind of want to highlight briefly is the modernizing of prints. This is usually helpful, but I'm going to show you an instance where it's not helpful. So here I have a deck list I've pasted from Limitless for the Sun and Moon Lost Thunder format. You'll notice that it's trying to modernize all of these prints for me, trying to make them the most current one, because typically those are going to be the cheapest prints. So in this case, it's trying to change the Great Ball from Shining Legends into the Great Ball from Paldean Fates, the Ultra Ball from Shining Legends into the Ultra Ball from Shining Legends, etc. You get the idea. So it's trying to modernize all these prints to make them the most recent version of those particular cards. Now, one of the things we can do when we're importing here, if we go to the export and bring it into the deck builder here, if we're validating for the Sun and Moon Lost Thunder format, you remember what I was talking about earlier, it sees these newer prints of the cards and goes, hey, those aren't legal. That's not, those prints didn't exist in that format. They're not legal for that format. So one thing we can do under the settings page here is actually go to modernize prints and turn that off. So now it's saying, no, don't modernize that print. When we go here, now it's just correcting the wording for Grass Energy. So if we export to the builder, now it's saying, okay, I recognize all these prints. It is in fact legal for Sun and Moon Lost Thunder format. And you'll notice that it's actually using the legal card text, but it is still using the preferred prints that we have for the images here in the settings. So you'll see here we have the Nest Ball from Paldean Fates. If we wanted the image to be era accurate, we could change these to ones that were legal in that particular era. So here we have the Shining Legends, for example. So moving back to image, these are actually the prints that were used at the time. And then one last little thing I want to show you, there is a small search option. This is not very robust. It's not intended to be especially fancy, at least yet. Right now, it's just bare bones. It's meant to make it so you can find things as if you really, really need them. So let's say, for example, I need to find all the prints of Blossom that exist in the trading card game right now. So if I put Blossom in here, it's going to search and it's going to find all the prints of Blossom. And let's say, for example, I'm planning to play the Delta species Blossom in my deck list. I can't remember which set it's from, or maybe I realize it's from Hollow Phantoms, but I can't remember what specific set abbreviation that set has. I can come here, I can find it, and then I can just take this text right here where it says Blossom HP 19 and go, okay, that's one it is. And when I come over into the deck builder, I can change it and say, hey, it's going to be Blossom HP 19. So I'll go over here for Blossom HP 19. and now it knows exactly which one it is. Obviously, that's not legal and synonym in last under format. We'll just make that eternal. But it does recognize it. It understands which card we're talking about, so we're good. That's kind of that's the primary use I see, at least right now, for this. This is mostly intended to make it so you can find the specific card you're trying to find and figure out what the codes are that you need. So whether that's the specific card number, maybe there's a couple of different Riolu in the set and you need to figure out which specific one it is, or maybe there are a few sets that it might be from, but you can't remember which from. That's what this is kind of for, right? So this is here also as a way to help you a little bit and figure out some things for your deck list. And then there's a small little feature here that just lets you kind of switch the order, oldest first or newest first. It's not a big thing, but it's something that's here for you. But that is the Excel deck list editor. It is, I think, a very valuable resource. And if you are a Patreon supporter and you happen to have access to this, I encourage you to leave comments in the description. Say, hey, this is what I do with it. This is how useful it is to me. Because frankly, this is one of the biggest things I use to help me with my website. This is an enormous, enormous help for when I build my website. And I know a lot of people, especially those that play Eternal format, really, really appreciate this for validating in the Eternal format, because it's checking for all those little things for legality that other deck editors, other deck builders just aren't going to do. And whether you're playing GLC and you need to make sure it's checking for GLC legality, or your local players play an aceless format, whatever that may be, this is your deck editor, and Excel is excelling as a decklist editor thanks to this Patreon exclusive perk. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this look at the Excel deck builder, and hopefully if it interests you, you might jump in and join as a Patreon supporter. But that is going to be all from me for today. Join me and the others, all my friends, on Saturday for the live stream. We're going to be looking at our very first battles for Shrouded Fable. Shrouded Fable, we're going to be testing Okie Dokie versus United Wings. United Wings is going to have a field day with the new Dartrix, and Okie Dokie is pretty decent as a deck. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I love my birds. Anyway, that is all for today. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video.